So you're going on your first Disney cruise and you might have a lot of questions, you might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed. We can relate to that. We were in the same boat a few months ago when we went on our first Disney cruise. But in today's video, we're gonna give you the answers to some of the most frequently asked questions and some of the tips and tricks we can give you when booking your first Disney cruise.
And let me tell you, you guys are making a good decision by going on the Disney Cruise Line. Coming from someone that's been on multiple different cruise lines, Disney is top notch, the service is amazing, and you guys are gonna have an awesome time, whether you're an adult or a child.
So in this video, we're gonna give you some tips and tricks that you guys should know while you're booking a Disney cruise, and we're also gonna talk about some of the things that you might not be aware of. And first one being is, do I have to sail out of Port Canaveral, Florida? A big misconception is people think they have to go down to Disney World to leave on a Disney cruise, and that's just simply not the case. There are a lot of different ports that you can sail out of. There is Port Canaveral in Florida, Galveston, Texas, Miami, San Diego, San Juan, Puerto Rico, New Orleans, and New York City as well, depending on which time of year you're looking to go on your cruise and what kind of cruise you're looking to take. I would argue that Port Canaveral is probably the most popular port to leave out of, considering it's in the Orlando area and a lot of the Bahamian cruises leave out of there, but you do have options depending on where you are in the country.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're not someone from Florida, there's a million other different places that you can sail out of, especially if you want to save some money and you don't want to fly all the way to Florida. Like for us, we live in the New York City area, so we've discussed maybe in the future taking a cruise out of New York, because then we wouldn't have to pay for flights.
So yeah, check the Disney Cruise Line website, because depending on which time of year you're looking to sail, you might be able to leave out of your home port, I'll call it. Like Alex mentioned, we live in the New York City area, so if we wanted to go on a cruise in the fall, maybe a Halloween on the High Seas cruise or a very merry time, there are cruises in like October and November that leave out of New York City, so just something to think about.
Okay, so one of the next main questions that people have is, do I need a passport when I'm sailing on the Disney Cruise Line? And the answer is maybe. So definitely check the website, check what itinerary that you're planning on going on. Sometimes you only need a birth certificate. You don't always need a passport. So I would just say make sure to look at specifically what itinerary you guys are going on, and the website will definitely let you know whether you're gonna need it or not.
Yeah, like for us, for example, on our cruise, we went to the Bahamas, and it wasn't a requirement to have the passport, but if you didn't bring your passport, you would need your identification, so like your driver's license, and a copy of your birth certificate. If you have a passport, I recommend you just always bring the passport. It's just easier. It's one thing, one form of identification in a booklet, and because who knows, when in the midst of your packing, you might forget to pack your birth certificate, and the last thing you want on your vacation is to deal with something along those lines. So we recommend the passport if you guys have one already. If you don't have one, I would still recommend go out and getting one. It will make your life easier. But like we said, it's not always a requirement. It depends on which cruise you're sailing out of, so make sure you are aware of this before you book your cruise. Another question that a lot of first-time cruisers have is, how do I get to Port Canaveral? I'll use Port Canaveral as an example because that's probably the most popular port. And if you're flying into the Orlando area, you can't fly into Port Canaveral. So you have to fly into Orlando, MCO, and there are transportation options for you there. You can get on the Disney Cruise Line shuttle. It is not free. It is, I believe it was $78 a person round trip when we went in April. Those prices can change depending on when you're watching this video, so I would just double check the website to stay on top of that. But when we went, it was about $78 a person round trip. And we didn't leave from Orlando, we didn't leave from the airport. We left from a Disney World resort, so that's another option for you as well. So if you're flying in, let's just say the morning of the cruise, and you're not staying at Disney World before going, you can get the shuttle from Orlando International Airport. Or if you want to kind of do a land and sea adventure similar to what we did, you can actually get the bus at your resort. It's the same cost no matter which place you're picking the bus up from, and you do have some options, so there's that.
And a lot of people confuse that with the Magical Express, which is free from the airport to your resort, but this one for the cruise is an additional cost. Yeah,
and that was surprising to us when we booked. I thought it was gonna be free. I didn't know that there was gonna be a charge. But I will say, yes, $78 a person can be expensive, especially if you're a family of 4 or however big your family may be. But I do think it was worth it. It's the same exact experience as the Magical Express is. And it's just easy and convenient.
And it is cheaper than paying for a taxi or an Uber or
Yes.
something like that. We figured that out before we got there because we were like trying to decide what our options were, and the Disney Cruise Line bus is definitely cheaper than Uber or a taxi.
Yeah, and if you're staying at Walt Disney World before your cruise, another nice amenity is you don't have to take your luggage with you. You actually leave the luggage in the center of your room the morning that the cruise line shuttle picks you up. They take your bags from the room on the bus, and then you don't see them again until they're outside of your hallway. You know, I don't know, it depends on when they drop them off, but for us it was relatively soon after we got on board.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just another convenience, is that you don't have to, lug your luggage around the cruise terminal. Another question that people have is, can I cancel and get a full refund? And it depends. So if you have a situation going on in your life where you know that there's a chance that you might have to cancel the cruise, we definitely recommend getting the travel's insurance, because that will cover you and that will get you your money back. So if God forbid you have a sick member in your family, or you have a situation where you might have to cancel last minute, definitely get the travel's insurance and you'll be taken care of.
Definitely.
For the rest of you, the answer is it depends. So Disney actually rolled out new cancellation guidelines last year, and here is just a quick overview of what those are. So for starters, payment for all guests in standard rooms on sailings of 1 to 5 nights will be due 90 days prior to arrival, and that's final payment, so the rest of whatever you owe. Those same guests will now be charged cancellation fees starting at 89 days prior. Guests, you will lose your deposit. At 44 days to sailing, guests will lose half of the payment, so the total cost of the cruise. And at 29 days, guests will lose 75%, and at 14 days or less, guests will lose 100%. So if you cancel within a 2-week window of your sail date and you don't have the traveler's insurance, you're actually gonna lose all of your money. So again, if you have a circumstance where you would need the traveler's insurance, highly recommend doing so. If not, please make sure that you're aware of the cancellation terms, because unless you're canceling 89 days to sailing or greater, you will not get your full amount of money back, and that's very, very important to know.
Just make sure you read all of the details before you book anything. That's my biggest recommendation to you.
Yeah, and if you guys are Disney fans and you're used to doing Walt Disney World vacations or Disneyland vacations where you can cancel up to 5 days prior of your arrival, that is not the case here. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, if you book a Walt Disney World vacation and it's a week away and you need to cancel it, they'll give you your deposit back. If you cancel within 5 days, you're gonna have to make a case for it, and there's no guarantee that you're gonna get it back. But it's totally different for cruise lines, so just wanna make sure you guys are fully aware of the cancellation policy.
Okay, so we took care of all the pre-booking stuff. Now, once you're on board, let's talk about some things that you're gonna need to know. So if it's your first time on a Disney cruise, we would recommend to stay somewhere in the middle of the ship, especially if you're someone that's worried about motion sickness, which I was. The middle of the ship is where they recommend that you really don't feel the ship move as much. Whereas if you stayed in the forward or the aft, you feel the ship move a little bit more. Now, that doesn't mean to say if you're staying in the middle that you're not gonna feel it at all, because you do.
Yeah, it depends.
You do, yeah. And also it depends on if the seas are rough or not.
Sure, yeah.
We were very lucky when we went, the seas were very calm. You could hardly feel the boat moving. But we do recommend, if you're someone worried about motion sickness, try and stay towards the middle of the boat. And if the weather's okay, you should be completely fine.
Yeah, and it really depends on the sailing that you're on. So you could stay in the middle and you can feel it. You can stay in the forward or the aft and not feel anything.
Right.
When we went on our cruise, we actually stayed in the aft. And we were very much towards the back, and we were concerned that we were going to feel the ship rocking. Alex has been on other cruises before. This was my first cruise, so I was very concerned about the motion sickness, and we had a very, very calm cruise, and I honestly didn't feel a thing.
Yeah.
I was very concerned about feeling it, and I didn't feel anything. I fell asleep so easily every night. I was never woken up, or I never had any motion sickness problems, so we lucked out. It might not be the case for everybody like that, but if you have good weather, then you should be okay pretty much no matter where you are. We also recommend that you try to stay in the middle decks. if possible. The closer you stay to the bottom of the ship, the more problems you might run into, especially if you're in that aft section, because that's where the engine of the ship is.
Right.
So if you have one of the rooms that's maybe on deck 2 or deck 3 or lower, you may hear some rumblings from the engine. So just another thing to keep in mind, but it really depends on your cruise. Another thing to consider once you're on board is, am I gonna have the first or second dining? This is actually taken care of during the booking process, so we should have talked about this earlier, but first dining is typically about 5:30 p.m. I don't know the exact times, and then the second dining is usually about 8 p.m. or so. So Disney Cruise Line gives you the option to choose which time you want to eat. For us, when we went on our cruise, we took the second dining because we don't have kids, so we wanted to go a little bit later to have less kids around when we were eating dinner. And also just like 5:30 on a cruise seems like a little bit early to eat for me if you don't have kids. I just feel like, you know, by the time you eat lunch, if you eat a late lunch, you might not be too hungry. So I felt like 8 o'clock was a good time.
Right.
And yeah, it worked out for us.
And not to say that if you have the later dining like we did, that there's not going to be kids around, because realistically it's a Disney cruise, there's gonna be kids, but usually there are less kids at the later dining because 8 o'clock is late for kids to eat. But like Matt said, we chose the 8 o'clock. We thought that it was fine. If we were hungry, we would have a little snack before, but it worked out well for us. Yeah,
it worked out well, and we got to go to the show before we ate dinner. If you have the first dining, you go to the show after you eat dinner. So I kind of liked how we had the show first, then we went to eat, and I felt like the night kind of flowed a little bit better than it would if we went to the first dining. But if you're a family that has kids, I would probably recommend first dining, because you're probably going to go to bed earlier than you know, somebody like me or Alex might. But again, you really can't go wrong with either. But if you are traveling without kids, or if you want to have less kids around your dinner experience, we would recommend the second dining.
Another thing to mention about dining is before we actually got on board, we called and requested to have our own table. If you don't do that, you might be sitting with other families, but we knew we specifically wanted to sit just us together, so we called ahead of time, and it's not guaranteed, but you can request it, and they will do everything they can to take your request and make it happen for you, and they did for us.
But the families that were combined, that were sitting near us, they all were having a great time with each other. So if you have kids, it might be a nice way to meet another family and have them kind of hang out with each other on the cruise. So, Another common question people have when booking a Disney cruise is, where is the alcohol package? And we are here to tell you that there is no alcohol package on Disney Cruise Lines. If you are a cruiser that's sailed on other ships before, like Royal Caribbean or Norwegian or whatever it may be, you know that there are all-inclusive alcohol packages that you can purchase ahead of time and have that taken care of. Since Disney Cruise Line is more of a family-friendly environment, there is no alcohol packages that you can purchase. Doesn't mean that you can't have any alcohol on the ship, it just means that you can't purchase a package. And there's plenty of places on the ship to get alcohol, but you pay per drink.
So another big question is Disney Cruise Line for adults? And we're here to tell you, yes. We're adults without kids, and we went on Disney Cruise and we absolutely loved it. If you're someone that's worried about, oh, Disney Cruise is gonna be all kids, kids everywhere, yes, that's true. There are a lot of kids, but there's amazing adult-only areas on the ship that we really took advantage of and loved. For example, there's adult-only pools, the spa area, there's different adult-only restaurants, and different adult-only nightlife as well. So there's a lot to do that doesn't involve kids. You just have to look on your navigator, and it'll tell you adult-only, different options that you can do, and we really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we had a great time. Like Alex said, there are kids on the cruise. It's a Disney Cruise Line, there's gonna be kids there. But there is a lot of ways that you can limit your interaction with kids if that's not what you're looking for. If you're maybe an older couple that doesn't need to be around all the super Disney things all the time, there is plenty for you to do on the ship. We actually made a whole video about adults only activities on Disney Cruise and why adults should go on. We'll leave that up in the corner and down in the description below if you guys want to check that out. But again, if you're an adult and you're concerned about just being surrounded by kids all day, there's plenty of places you can go to get away.
And even on Disney's private island, Castaway Cay, they have an adult only beach, which is paradise.
The best.
Yeah, you definitely have to go check it out. So that's another option as well.
And now that you brought up Serenity Bay, that's where I want to be right now.
Me too.
And if you guys go on a cruise that stops at Castaway Cay, highly recommend going to Serenity Bay. Even if you have kids and you want to get away from the kids a little bit, they take the kids clubs on shore at Castaway Cay, so you can have the kids hang out with the cast members that are the counselors there, and you can get away for a little bit. Highly recommend doing
Definitely.
so. So on the Disney Cruise Line, there are a lot of opportunities to get your photos taken, and they do a absolutely tremendous job taking those photos. So you might be wondering, how do I go about this? Can I buy a photo package? Do I have to buy each picture individually? And there's options. You can do that if you want. You can buy each photo individually, or you can buy like an all-encompassing package, whether it's the actual prints or digital versions of those pictures. You have those options available for you. And we recommend that you guys go with the all-inclusive photo package.
Yeah.
They're gonna take a lot of pictures of you and your family on this cruise, so there's gonna be a lot to choose from, and it's gonna be hard to do so if you go with one of the smaller packages. So we recommend just kind of spending the money and getting everything. We also recommend that you do it digitally. We had the actual copies of the photos printed out for us, and they are very nice.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit easier if they were digital in terms of, you know, getting more ones printed or things like that.
And we also recommend doing the photo packages online before you get on the cruise, because I do think that it's a little bit cheaper than when you get on the ship.
Yeah, it is. You'll save, I don't know exactly how much it is, but I would imagine it's about $20 to $30 cheaper, roughly.
So that's something that you could do when you're booking online.
Yeah. And lastly, we just have a little extra tip for you guys, for those of you who made it all the way through the end of the video. We recommend that you pick up one of these, and that's a lanyard. If this is your first Disney cruise, you're gonna see a lot of people walking around with lanyards, and unless you bring one yourself, you're not gonna have one. If you go on a Disney cruise for the second time or the millionth time, any time greater than the second time, they will give you a lanyard each time. But if it's your very first cruise, you have to bring your own lanyard, and it's not necessarily that you have to bring it, it just makes things easier. So you have your kind of key to the world card, I'll call it, and you could put it in this like plastic compartment here, wear it around your neck, and you'll always have this with you. You need this to get in your room, put the lights on. So yeah, if you have a lanyard, we definitely recommend bringing it ahead of time. And there's a lot of cute Disney Cruise Line ones you can get. We went on Etsy and we picked up 2 of these. But yeah, definitely recommend you bringing a lanyard. It's just easy.
Another little tip, and this is specifically like Disney Cruise Line, people decorate their doors.
Oh yes.
So everybody has magnets on their doors, which I wasn't familiar with. I've been on Royal Caribbean and no one did that. It's just a fun little Disney Cruise Line thing that people do. So we bought magnets on Amazon or Etsy. Etsy, before we went, and it was just a cute little like added touch.
Yeah, we had, it was our first cruise, so we just had a couple of magnets, but there were people that had their entire door covered with magnets. So definitely recommend. It's a fun way to get the kids involved. And, you know, once you get to the room, you can have the kids decorate. And each time you go on a cruise, if you want to pick up a couple of new magnets and kind of build your collection, it'll be a nice way to kind of look back on all the voyages you've been on already. So yeah. So we hope you guys found this video helpful and informative if you're going out on your first Disney cruise, or maybe it's your 100th Disney cruise and you're just looking for some extra tips. We hope we were able to help you guys out along your Disney Cruise Line booking journey. If so, make sure you give this video a nice big thumbs up. It helps us out and lets us know you're enjoying the videos we're making. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new here. We put out Disney videos all the time, and make sure you check the playlist down below. We will link our cruise line vlogs, so if you guys want to check out our most recent cruise line adventure, you'll be able to do so there.
And with that, we'll see you guys real soon.
Bye.
Bye.